Hey guys, it's Derekis, and this is Channel Zapped. Today I'm going to be reviewing Naruto 668, the beginning of the Red Spring. This was a pretty good chapter. I like this chapter. We got to see some backstory and history into Mike Guy. Um, he's one of my favorite characters, which is funny because typically I don't like the kind of characters that that are like Guy. You know, the comedic kind of characters, the silly characters. But I've always liked Guy, primarily because he was always a hard worker and he was always encouraging. He was always positive. And I do like those characteristics in characters. And so I really dug this chapter. This was a chapter that I could really get into. There was a lot of flashbacks. There was three separate flashbacks in this, and it helped build on the layers of Guy, of what we've seen thus far. And it gave us some backstory, some history into who he is, how he became the way he is. And it drew some interesting parallels with Kakashi and Kakashi's life that I was forced to stop and think about. And it was a theme that could be seen in other characters as well, like Neji and Neji's father. The parallel between these three shinobis and their fathers, and what their fathers went through in life, and really how they ended up dying. And so there were some interesting parallels here. But first, the scene starts off with Guy, Kakashi, Rock Lee, Manito, um, and Madara. And they're all standing around, and last issue at the end, Guy, he proclaimed that he was going to open the eighth gate. And this chapter was it was building up to that moment where Guy did it. And I think it was interesting that everybody was pretty much asking, Guy, are you sure you want to do that? You don't have to do that. This isn't the time. And I'm like, you're fighting Madara. Is there a better time to open that damn gate? I'm like, Guy, open the damn gate. I'm like, granted, it also means that, as it was told, when a person opens the eighth gate, they are going to die. So I'm like, I in a way is I find it a bit. It's interesting that the characters are trying to convince him, Guy, don't do it, don't do it. It's not worth it. You don't have to. But I'm like, when you're in war and you're fighting, and you're going in knowing that you have the potential or possibility to die. And in a way, by telling him not to do that, it kind of, in the way I look at it, it kind of dishonors Guy, his intention of going in and fighting, and dying, like his students, or his student Neji, like his father did. Like Kakashi's goes into battle all the time. How many times has he risked his life? And all of the characters, all of the ninjas, that's what being a shinobi is about. So I found it interesting that they didn't. And it seemed like Manito was the one who was most, adamant, who came across most strongly about, Guy, don't do it. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, well, that's odd. I understand why you don't. I'm like, you like him, but you're in a war. You have to do that. So then we go back to a flashback of Guy talking to Rock Lee. And it was one of these typical Guy Rock Lee moments where Guy is just giving him the wisdom of his philosophy on youth. That's what I've called it. I'm like, Guy should really start a church, the Church of Guy and eternal youthfulness. But he was sitting there and he was just like giving him this speech on his insane work ethic. Pretty much keep trying, keep striving, and you will become an excellent ninja. And he was like, look at me. He was like, even I stand. He was like, I stand with on the same level as the genius Kakashi. And he's like, there's no deny. He's like, I know my place. He was like, I worked hard to get here. And this is where I am. And you can be there too if you work hard, struggle, do the challenges. It's possible that you can do that. So it was interesting to see that lesson. It's always interesting to see those lessons because I love when when he gives those talks. And Rock Lee is always, it seems like, the one who gets them the most. One of the interesting things, and that was the first flashback. The second flashback dealt with Guy and his father Dai. Mike Guy. But his father Dai, we learn, was an eternal genin. He never rose above the rank of genin. And that was, I'm looking at that, I'm like, that is such an interesting parallel to Guy. I'm like, he's pretty much the joke of the Konoha ninjas, where they mock him, the people, they mock him, they mock Dai. And it's interesting that by following the same philosophy as his father, Guy is also mocked by his fellow shinobi and his fellow citizens of the Leaf. But nobody questions his abilities. With his father, they mocked him because he was a genin, and they were like, that's cute. You're pretty much nothing and nobody. And they did it in front of Guy, and Guy pretty much stood up for his dad and his dad's philosophy. And he threw a rock, hit one of the shinobis in the back of the head, and then you cut to the next scene and you see Guy in a hospital, and Guy was saying, they were mocking you. I was trying to protect your philosophy, your belief on life and on youthfulness. I wanted to protect that. That was important to me. And of course, Guy, Dai, Rock, they all cry at the drop of a hat. And so there was a touching moment there where they're just like, oh, cry. And so that was nice. It was sweet, if we're gonna be sweet. We then learned that one of the things that I found interesting was that Guy can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu. It was never, from my understanding, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, it was never said or stated outright that Guy couldn't use these in the past, the ninjutsu or genjutsu, because it was always referred to Lee. Lee couldn't do it, but it was always a question mark about what Guy could do. So I just assumed that Guy could use ninjutsu or genjutsu. Not everybody is a genjutsu user. And looking back on it, I'm like, that puts so many things in perspective for me. I'm just like, it just makes Guy, knowing that he's not a ninjutsu or genjutsu user, that just elevates him so much higher. I'm like, and that level of respect, he gets, in my opinion, he gets more respect than probably any other jonin that I've seen thus far. I'm like, to get where he is, where he can go toe-to-toe with Kakashi. Hell, you go back to the beginning of the jump, or hell, before the jump, where Itachi and, I can't think of the shark guy's name, when they came into the Leaf, and, Kakashi was just hit by the Mangekyo Sharingan from Itachi, and Guy arrives, and the shark guy was like, yeah, I'm going to go in, and Itachi was like, hey, hold on, you don't want to, don't underestimate him. I'm like, he's pretty badass. So to get that level of respect, or to command that level of respect just by your hard work and effort, Um, that really that there's he jumped so high now. The guy was always up there, but just in terms of silliness, I can't deal with all the silliness that he does. But he has to be one of the most respected people. He's on my list of top 5 now. Honestly, I'm like, just for hard work and effort. That's just crazy. So we then jump to another flashback where Guy and his team are surrounded by the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Badass, right? I never get tired of saying that. That is just like a cool freaking title. And the 7 swordsmen, and Guy is like, okay, we can't escape, so we have to fight. And his father jumps in, and he opens up the gate. And he's like, now's the time. I'm going to use this. I'm going to protect. And I'm assuming that he died. That's where he died, fighting the 7 swordsmen, so that Guy and his team could escape. I don't know. We'll see next week if they follow up in the flashback to see what happens. But it was interesting because after the hospital stint, Guy was taught by his father how to open the gates. And that's how Guy learned it. He learned the techniques from his father. And his father said it took me like 20 years. I can't remember which one. I think it was 20 years. It's in the chapter. Go back, find it. And he was like, this is, basically it's like, this is my life's work. This is what I can do, as again, and this is what this is what I managed to learn. And we see he comes in for that sacrifice. And then we jump back to the present day. And we just see Guy he opens up the chakra point over his heart. And it's like Jean Grey from the X-Men came in and she was like, Guy, I select you as a candidate for the Phoenix Force. Because Guy just lets this flame comes up. I'm assuming it's red, because that's what they're describing it as. It's red. It's in black and white, so you can't really tell. But I'm like, I saw that picture and I was like, Guy's the next holder of the Phoenix Force. All right, Guy, go team. Can't get much better than that. But yeah, the Guy comes in. He's rushing towards Madara. And Madara's like, yeah, he's doing this. And then they cut to this scene where Guy is just right there in front of, like, Madara. Like, and Madara's like, the look on his face is like, well, shit. It was just pretty. That was a great moment. So, yeah, that was it. This was a pretty solid chapter. And pretty solid, pretty good. I got a lot of backstory about a character that I've always wanted to know more about. He was always an enigma to me. I'm like, I didn't know what Guy could do. During the war, this is where we saw, for me, the most progression in the sense of what Guy's abilities actually are. His personality doesn't change. Except for the fact we learned that he's forgetful with faces. He's like, he'll meet somebody, and then like 3 seconds later, he'll turn around and like, hey, da-da-da, who are you? So it's just one of those things. But in terms of characters and things that I've noticed, it's interesting, like I was saying earlier, the parallel between Guy and Dai, where his father, he was an eternal Genin, and he was mocked by his peers and the shinobi of the Leaf, and he died. Yeah, I'm assuming he died when fighting the 7 swordsmen. He died a hero, and these are the footsteps that Guy is following in. And Guy is a hard worker, but he's damn near legendary himself amongst the Leaf, and that's an interesting parallel to see that dynamic of this is what Dai accomplished, this is what Guy accomplished. And then you take that and look at Kakashi and his father, where Kakashi's father was this legendary figure who pretty much died in shame and committed suicide. And Kakashi inherited his father's will, just like Guy inherited his father's will. But Kakashi was a genius. His father was a genius. And we see how that played out with him. And then you look at someone like Neji and his father, where his father was a strong shinobi, and because he was brought back by Kabuto. So I'm assuming that he was great enough. I'm like, if Kabuto was like, yeah, I want him. You know, that gives me something to work with, in the sense of, okay, this is evidence that he was a worthwhile ninja and he should have been, or he was respected. But Neji's clan, they kind of have this weird caste system, where Neji and Neji's father are considered the lower members of the family. But his father died protecting his brother, his twin brother. And Neji, in my opinion, was a good I'm not going to say a great ninja, but he was a pretty solid ninja. He was a good ninja. He was the first to become a Jonin, and he died in war. He died. And he died rather unceremoniously also. But that's war. War, that happens. So this was an interesting chapter. All in all, looking at that dynamic, this chapter gave me a lot to think about, going back and re-examining what I think of Guy, his relationships, and pretty much everything. So I'm looking forward to next chapter, because I'm pretty sure next chapter is probably going to be fight, which is fine. We got some, they're breaking it up, so we'll see. But yeah, so this is one of my longer videos, so I'm just going to go ahead and, call it quits, guys. But comment, rate, subscribe down below. Check me out, Facebook, social media, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+. And please leave your comments down below. I'm interested to see what you guys think about this chapter. So I will catch you guys later. Peace.